My amazing wife is from China and came over to the United States when we first met in college. I have learned so much from her on the Chinese perspective on money and finance. There are many interesting money concept differences between Chinese and American societies. Coming from an international marriage, I've seen benefits of understanding other cultures' viewpoints on money. So I truly hope this video can help open your mind and give you additional insights on gaining control of your finances. In today's video, I am excited to discuss the 11 key differences between Chinese and American views on finance and money management. Of course, the differences mentioned come from the majority of each population. It doesn't mean that everyone from a particular country or society has the exact same perspectives or habits towards money. Okay, so first off, I want to extend a warm welcome to both new and returning viewers. This is our Biesinger Family Fire Journey channel, where I share my wife and I's tips and tricks on managing and investing money, plus becoming more financially literate. Let's talk about American versus Chinese spending money views and habits. Of course, this is generally speaking because many of us have varying views and habits with money, regardless of where we are born. In China, frugality is a concept that has been taught for thousands of years. There are even many ancient books that teach about frugality. So having a frugal mindset and behavior is an integral part of the Chinese culture. In China, frugality is a virtue. Therefore, frugal people are praised, and spending money is actually quite criticized a lot of the time. To be completely honest, when my wife and I first married, she was in charge of the money. I learned many valuable money lessons from her and broke many of my lousy spending habits. In America, spending and consumer debt are heavily marketed and even praised. I am very grateful that I learned early on the value of saving and investing. Number 2 is the attitude on putting money towards savings. Many Chinese people love to save as much as possible and be prepared for a rainy day, aka having an emergency fund, which we talk about a lot on this channel. China's personal savings rate is surprisingly high compared to the United States. According to Quartz, the Chinese people's savings rate is 45.2%, but Americans only 18.3%. So the Chinese have a 26.9% higher money savings rate than Americans. A large percent of Americans spend too much money on wants and unfortunately end up in a heap of debt. So it's essential to have a positive attitude towards saving and exercising self-discipline when spending money. Number 3, Chinese versus American, split the bill or no. In the US, we typically split the bill when going out to dinner with friends and family, and this happened for me and my wife when we were dating at the time. This is simply not the Chinese way. When my Chinese in-laws came over for a wedding in 2017, they would help pay for a lot of things, and when we went out to dinner, had activities, they would pay. After Chinese children have grown up and established a solid financial foundation, they would start paying for these types of expenses, so parents don't need to anymore. Children will also frequently give money to their parents during holidays and birthdays to show gratitude and respect for all that they have done. In America, it is common to split the bill. This is not seen as disrespectful, but is an easy way for individuals to pay their own and not owe other people anything. These are just some cultural differences. Number 4, different perspectives on debt. Credit cards are pretty rare in China. Most people pay cash for everything. When Chinese students graduate, they don't have student debt because their parents typically will pay for tuition and expenses. On the other hand, countless Americans have a lot of debt in student loans, credit cards, etc. I used to be in that group until I decided to get out of debt. Our family right now is debt-free except for mortgages. Through hard work and discipline, I graduated student loan debt-free with my MBA. Getting out of debt was challenging at times, but being debt-free feels terrific. The Chinese are weary of debt, which is a good thing. Number 5, negotiating and bargaining. In the USA, we do not negotiate or bargain a lot in society. China, however, is an entirely different world in this regard. My wife Sean told me we should always look for bargains in China. Bargaining is the way of life. For example, if you go to the food market to buy vegetables, meats, fruits, etc., you will bargain with the food seller. If you want to travel to China or do business with the Chinese, like buying items from a Chinese factory, make sure to negotiate. Locals charge a higher price when they see foreigners. They do this because they think that you're rich and don't understand their Chinese market. My wife taught me these following bargaining tips, so you can make a note of these as well. No matter how much you like a product, don't show too much interest. Instead, tell the seller your ideal price, but make that price a little lower than the price you actually want. If the seller disagrees, you say no and just start to leave. Most of the time, the seller will give you a lower price when they see you're leaving. Next, shop around. There are lots of shops selling similar things in China, whether physical or online. If one shop doesn't work out, check another to see if the same thing or similar thing is being sold. Remember, bargaining is the Chinese way, so don't be shy to negotiate a lower price, especially if you are paying with cash. Cash is king. Number 6 is openness when discussing money. People in China are very open to discussing money and financial situations. In the US, we tend to keep our finances more private and don't openly share our salary, house values, investments, etc. The Chinese are very open when talking about the topic of money. People will just go around and talk about stocks they traded recently, how much they bought their homes for, and your salary is not a secret. If you ask a person in China how much they make, they will likely tell you. In Chinese culture, talking about money is not impolite, and sometimes there are benefits because you can learn from each other. In the United States, these financial topics are relatively private. People generally do not ask, or if they ask very carefully. The other person may refuse to tell you or may be offended. Number 7, collectivism versus individualism. In American society, many children must be independent when they reach age 18. For example, most American kids need to pay for their college tuition and care for their own expenses. When you live in your parents' house, sometimes you must also pay rent. This is because the US culture is very individualistic. There may be more freedom, but also typically less help financially from others. Here is a very insightful chart from Hofstede's Insights to see how different the US ranks in individualism versus China. Throughout my bachelor and MBA programs, I've been able to learn a lot about Hofstede's dimensions of culture, which helps so much to better understand other cultures and do business in a very professional way. As you can see from this chart, US ranked 91 in individualism and China ranked 20. While attending college, my wife was shocked to hear her roommate say, "My parents tell me to take everything from their house to my own apartment because my apartment is my new home now." Much of the elderly population in the USA live in a senior center to care for themselves. But this is not common practice for Chinese people with a collectivist mindset and culture. My father-in-law once explained to me that no matter how old his daughter was, she was still her kid and needed to be looked after. It's common for Chinese parents to help pay for their children's college, tuition, possibly buy a car and home, and even raise the next generation. It's also common to see multi-generational families living in the same home. My wife told me that her grandma and aunts helped her mom raise her when she was a little one. When Chinese parents grow old, Chinese children will also care for them. That's why you can see 3 generations living together in China. For example, my wife's grandmother lives with her son and grandson instead of a senior living center. This is a very common practice in China. There are pros and cons to each side, collectivism and individualism. My wife would share with me how being in such a highly collective culture in families, there is not too much freedom. Although having good intentions, many Chinese parents frequently supervise what children do into adulthood and are not shy to give pressure and feedback. Number 8, who pays for the wedding? The groom's family will pay for the wedding and honeymoon in China. In the US, the bride's parents usually pay for the wedding. I am very touched that my Chinese parents understood our American culture, so they did not get upset when we were preparing for the wedding. My wife and I had a simple wedding, and both parents helped to pay for it. We also had a very different honeymoon story. My Chinese in-laws came from China to the USA for a wedding, right? So we couldn't just leave them alone while we left on our honeymoon. They also don't speak a whole lot of English. So yes, we took them on our honeymoon trip to California, and actually, it was a lot of fun. And of course, being Chinese parents, they help pay for a lot of those costs. Because of their generosity for the wedding and honeymoon expenses, we were able to save up a lot of money during college and be able to have that down payment ready. Number 9, cash as gifts or not. In China, adults will put cash in a red envelope and Chinese people call it lucky money or 红包. Every New Year or birthday, Chinese kids usually receive lucky money as their gifts. Lucky money is a traditional gift for any celebration. The recipients can do anything they want with the money too. Since children in China receive cash, their parents will teach them not to spend money indiscriminately and to save extra money. It turns out to be a fantastic finance lesson for children to learn how to save money and manage their money. Cash gifts may seem less common in the US. Usually Americans will give and receive real gifts or a gift card. After being with my wife for many years, I have also become more likely to accept cash as a gift or a gift card because we are in the US, or to give cash to others because sometimes you give things that others may not need or like, because when you give cash, people can usually use that money for whatever they want. Number 10, food and money. Food is a very central aspect to Chinese culture and customs. In the United States, when we say hi, we will say, how are you? But in China, they will say, have you eaten? My Chinese in-laws always say, you can save everything in your life, but don't save money on food. When I travel with my wife, she is also very focused on finding local delicacies. There's an emphasis not just on how much it costs, but how long it takes to cook the food, with longer cooked foods tasting much better. My wife and her Chinese friends here say that they prefer American food because it's quick and easy, but Chinese food takes so long to make. America has the reputation for fast food cuisine, which has benefits but may lack in taste or nutrition. Number 11, college tuition and expenses. The last thing I want to talk to you about is regarding American versus Chinese money views on paying for college out of pocket or not. Chinese people care very much about education. There's a famous saying in China that education can change your destiny. My wife's parents told her that she did not have to worry about tuition if she could attend a good college. They can even sell their own house to pay for her education and other expenses. They strongly believe that giving kids a good education and obtaining a degree is one of the best generational wealths passed on to them. In the US, most kids pay for their college tuition and expenses. It can be challenging to make enough money to cover tuition while going to college, so Americans have a large amount of student debt, me included in the past. You can check out our other video which shares my experience on how to balance full-time school and full-time work and how it really paid off in the long run. From Forbes, we can see some more compelling numbers about student loan debt in the US. So the US has $1.75 trillion in total student loan debt, including federal and private loans. There is $28,950 owed per borrower on average, and about 92% of all student debt loans are federal student loans. The remaining amount is in private student loans. 55% of students from public four-year institutions had student loans. 57% of students from private nonprofit four-year institutions took on educational debt. We are so grateful that we made the decision early on to work extra hard so that I could graduate student loan debt-free with both my bachelor's and master's degrees, although it wasn't easy. We actually knew someone who wanted to buy a house but couldn't qualify because of their massive student loan debt, so they needed to pay back some of those loan balances first. Now my wife and I are contributing $200 a month to our two kids' educational funds. Each receive $100 a month to their 529 education funds. We truly hope to help our kids with their expenses as much as possible, just like my wife's parents supported her. She is amazing and came over to the US on a music scholarship, but her parents still supported her with living costs and other things. It's important to note that there are many people in the US who teach their children about finance and support them in numerous ways. I am delighted to learn about both sides of different cultures of money and finances, because seeing something different allows you to open your mind and improve yourself in many ways. It's our hope that this video will help you better understand some of the differences between Chinese and American views on money and finance. What are some of the money views you have or habits you've developed that you think have come from your culture or society? Let us know in the comment section below. And as always, please subscribe to our journey for more financial freedom content to come.